afternoon, gentlemen. We don't have lady. It's my honor to join the T3CON conference here in Asia conference. And I know it's the last session, and after the 6 sessions, I know everybody got really tired. So I hope my topic today is an interesting one, that something can cheer you up. First, I'd like to give you a brief introduction about myself. My name is Ben Fang, is my Chinese name. I live in Kunming, China, and I've worked for multiple overseas companies during the last 11 years. And now I work for zdreicom Digital in Dallas, Texas, USA, with the responsibility of UI design and front-end programming. Now, I want to give you a brief introduction about the team. The one in the middle, he's Ron Hall, the president of zdreicom Digital. And he will just share some videos during this session. I will play later. This is Jeff Seegars, our chief code architect. He is also a member of the international core team of Typo3. Jira, developer and programmer. Jeremy Seegar, this one, and designer and front-end developer. We also have another member which is not in this slideshow. His name is Jeremy Greenwald. So, this photo was taken when I was in US. They were asking me what is the most popular pose when taking a photo. I said, yeah, so we have this one. Over the last 20 years, the internet has greatly multiplied the options of where, when, and how we work. It's no longer that working on a project means you need to work from 5 to 8, 8 p.m. at 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday in the same office. It means you can assemble the best team in the world, regardless of the country or the time zone in which they are in. However, this flexibility does not come without challenges. In this session, both me and Ron will share the challenges we face and also the suggestions we will give. It's a pity that Ron cannot show up in person, but we did something really cool. We recorded some videos. So I will play those videos and you will hear Ron's suggestions. Okay, so I think everyone here could benefit, no matter you are employer or employee. And also, much of what we will talk about is not only for the cross-country, cross-continent relationship. It's also workers in different cities in the same country. This one thing to note, when we talk about the working relationships, there are 2 types. One is employer and employee. It means individuals are hired by a company on a permanent basis. The second one is the client and contractor. It means companies hire another company or freelancer on a temporary basis. Our situation belongs to the first category, which is employer-employee. But much of what we will talk about today apply both of these relationships. But some of that only apply to the employer and employee relationship. Okay, before we jump into the main course today, which is challenges and the suggestions, I'd like to bring you some appetizer, and I will talk about the advantages of working for overseas companies first. So let's find out what the long haul thinks and says from the employer perspective.
Hello, everyone. When talking about personnel that work outside of a company's physical offices, I like to use the term distributed worker or distributed team. Ben has already explained the two different types of relationships when it comes to distributed teams, one being a more permanent employer-employee relationship, the other being a more as-needed client-vendor relationship. What I want to talk about is why a company would seek these kind of relationships. First of all, you can oftentimes look outside because you want to work with the very best people, and you may not be able to find those in your local area. And so you oftentimes look at cities that are in your same country but outside your local area, or you look at other places around the world where you can find people that you have exceptional skills that you want to work with that fit your team. Another reason to look outside for a distributed team is to cover a short-term need. Let's say you have a very large project in. It calls for more work than your in-house team can do at the time allotted. And so you'll bring in distributed team members to help take care of that project, execute it, but the relationship only lasts for the length of that project. And so really, this only fits the client-vendor relationship, but can certainly help out a lot of times because you don't want to make the investment in a permanent employee for that kind of need, but you still want to have the work. And then third, a lot of times people go into this kind of relationship to save money. It's a fact of life that it doesn't cost the same to live in different parts of the world. And the costs for a developer are different in different parts of the world. Even within the U.S. itself, the same apartment in San Francisco and New York will cost 3 times as much as it does in Dallas. So a programmer in Dallas with the same lifestyle will be less expensive than programmers in San Francisco or New York. At the same token, you can oftentimes get even better value in countries like China. And so the idea is that you can pay a fair wage to the developer and even exceed that of his peers, and yet still save money over what it would cost you to develop locally. The one caution I would have is don't enter into these relationships just simply to save money. If you do, you're going to cut quality. It's not going to work out well. Instead, look to work with the very best people and engage with the very best people that you can work with, and then saving money is an additional benefit to that. Now, just to give you an idea how we work it here at Busy Noggin. In terms of our situation, we have 6 developers. 4 of us are in the office on a regular basis. The 5th developer is in the general area, but works at home and comes into the office once a week. And then we have Ben, who is totally remote in China. We are in the process of growing. We expect to add more employees, and we believe that some of those will be distributed employees. They may be in other states or they may be in other countries. To us, it's much more important that we find the right people that fit us very well and are going to be excellent parts of our team than it is where they live. Now, I will tell you that in terms of other than some limited design work, we don't work any client-vendor relationships. We only do permanent employees. The reason for that is we have very refined development processes and security requirements. We have to work with a person over a period of time to get them fully up to speed to work efficiently and effectively with our team, and therefore we find that for us, only an employer-employee relationship is really what we're looking for.
Okay, Ron mentioned about 3 points from the employer's perspective. And now I want to add a few more points as the employee's perspective. The first is work flexibility. Well, obviously, when if I work for an overseas company and I have a lot of freedom in time because I don't need to go to the office, I can choose what time I want to work, but not just to choose anything. But more importantly, there's no limitation for the location. That's something I really love. You know, actually I think as long as I have the internet and the computer with me, I can work in any country, in any city. Well, there's something I want to share personally. Me and my wife, we have a dream that we can go to different countries and see different people. It's kind of like the digital nomad. By saying that, I mean, if I work for overseas companies, this flexibility in location provide me a good opportunity to make my dream come true. So I really love that. The second is make more money. Generally speaking, I think if I work for an overseas company, the salary I can get is higher than my peers in the same city, or even higher than some people in more developed cities in China, like Beijing, Shanghai, which is really good. Yeah, making money is good, but for me, I think the third point, improve professional skills are even more important. There's a saying in Chinese, it's better to teach someone how to fish instead of giving them a lot of fishes. So what are the benefits what are the skills I can get? The first one is language skills. My English, speaking, listening, writing, comprehension, everything can be improved dramatically if I work for overseas companies. And the latest tech, that means, working for those companies can give me a good opportunity to learn, to touch the latest technologies. Let me give you an example. When I use SAS to compile and manage my CSS code, my friends in China, they still use the pure CSS. When I'm using HTML5, they still use HTML. When I tell them Git for version control, they don't even heard about it. So what I want to say here is not I'm smarter than my friends, but what I want to say is working for overseas companies help me open my eyes and expand my vision. Confidence. During the last 3 years, I've been working, many very large projects. When I look back at those 3 years at zdreicom Digital, my company, I have a feeling that I'm very confident because I know the ins and outs of those big projects, complicated projects. So, which is very, very good for me. Okay, so skills are something I can see and use on my day-to-day work. But there's something more invisible, which is what I listed here. Good characters and habits. Working for overseas agencies most likely means I need to work at home or a co-working space. It doesn't sound that cool or romantic because, without some positive characters or good habits, my life can be really tough. So what I learn, what I get from that is, the self-discipline, time management, and self-management are improved a lot when I work for overseas companies. Last but not the least, speed up learning ability. For me, working for overseas companies means I need to learn a lot of new things. because of the time zone, I cannot get the help from my team members directly. That means I need to solve the problem by myself. So, which is really, really good for me when I look back, because the ability and the speed of fixing problem was improved a lot. So those are the things for the benefits and advantage. When I look at that, all of those advantages, it only happens if everything goes well. That means we have challenges. So how to handle those challenges effectively? First thing first, I want to talk about communication. Both Ron and I will talk in 3 different points. So the first thing is understanding and adapting to foreign work cultures. Let's hear, people from different culture, from different country, they have the different backgrounds or reactions. Let me give you an example. In China, when people meet, they ask, have you eaten? Have you had your dinner? And in US, people ask, how are you? How are you doing? But if I ask an American, have you eaten? He might think, well, you want to buy me a dinner? Or something like that. But if you ask a Chinese guy, how are you doing? Maybe that's the response, because they really have no idea how to respond to you. So, how to understand a foreign culture, especially in work, is really important. Let's see what Ron says.
When you are working with someone that's overseas, I feel it's very important that both of you try to understand the culture of the other. I would say that you really need a deep interest in the culture of your team member in order to appreciate it. In fact, if you don't have that kind of interest, I got a feeling that you're not going to work very well together. Now, having said that you have an interest in another person's culture, it doesn't mean that what you know about it is very accurate. And I'm just speaking in my own experience. I have dealt a fair amount with people in Middle Europe, as well as in the Sudan and also in India. And I have found that by and large, they have been fed a lot of information about the U.S., seen it through TV shows, seen it through news, and all the rest. But what they have come out in terms of understanding is not anywhere near the reality of what it is to live in Texas or in the United States. In fact, even within the United States, I find that. So one of the things I think to come into grips with this is understanding that whatever we think about another culture, a lot of it's probably not very accurate. And the only way to clear up those inaccuracies is to question and to learn. So talk to your team member about their culture and what it's like to live there and the kinds of things that they deal with on a daily basis. It'll help you understand them better and also help you understand how they react to things, which helps with communications. Now, having said that, one thing you have to keep in mind is that even though you're dealing with someone from another culture, and even if you have a wonderful and deep and accurate understanding of their culture, you're still dealing with an individual. And they may or may not fit the mold of what is typical in their culture. And so learn about them as well too. One of the things I really appreciate about Ben is that he has a real ability to be able to understand the difference between how a person in China and a person in the U.S. might view something. I think it's, number one, of course, he's lived in China all of his life. And then number two, he's dealt with Americans over a long period of time. He's come here and visited, and he's had quite a bit of exposure. And so he has a pretty accurate understanding and has a pretty good idea how an American would react to a situation versus a Chinese person. And so that's a rare quality, and it it only comes through a lot of work and really, truly engaging, humbly engaging with other people to understand who they are, rather than just taking the things that you've always heard and what people have said and taking those to be the truth.
Ron mentioned about the first two things, and I want to add a few. Initial training. Having initial training is really important, I guess. I think the goal for this kind of training is just to bring up the issue and let everybody know the existence of the cultural differences and let everybody talk. I still remember when I first joined my first company, we had this kind of training, and both employer and employee, we discussed what are the culture shocks. We even gave examples to let everybody understand, which is really nice. The second one is reminding, because when I work for American companies, I always need to remind myself, okay, the guy I'm talking to is a foreigner. We have a different background or culture. So by doing that, when something goes wrong, and I can easily understand and I can handle it well. Dealing with the language, because communication, we use language when we communicate. The first thing is no assumption. If I don't catch my supervisor saying, I'll always just say, oh, I'm sorry, could you repeat it again? This principle is very easy, but it's really hard to put it into practice. That's the first thing. Second is about repeat when talking. When my supervisor, when Ron says something, I always repeat his saying to make sure I 100% understand what he says. And also when writing, I think the over communication is kind of important. I always double check, or sometimes I use screenshot or photos to kind of let the other party understand what I'm saying is correct. The fourth one is sharpen the language. Our situation is not the worst because I speak English and they speak English. But imagine if I work for a French company and we speak English, that could be a problem. So there's no shortcut or very good way to avoid that problem. So the only thing is to practice, because practice makes perfect. And I have some suggestions for employees that watching some technical video or listen to some technical videos is very helpful. For example, lynda.com is a very good source. By doing that, you get at least 2 points. One is you learn how to design, you learn how to develop a website. It's kind of tutorial. The second is by doing that, also your listening or your English skills can be improved a lot. Alright, so we talk about the culture. That's something still okay to handle as long as we spend some time. However, there's something not changeable, which is time zone. I'm in China and the team is in US. We have 12 hours of difference. There's no working hour overlap between us. My night is their daytime. So, how to deal with these challenges of time-shifted communication. I think there are a few points. The first is the spirit of sacrifice. Having a team with a different continent, there's no shortcut. That means someone has to sacrifice. either getting up early or stay up late or kind of sacrifice some of personal time. In our situation, our daily meeting is my morning time. It's about 8 a.m. my morning. So that means I need to start my work about 1 or 2 hours earlier than the normal Chinese employees. But that means Ron needs to sacrifice some of his dinner time or personal time. So I really appreciate the sacrifice for my supervisor, Ron. The second is prepare in advance. Well, you should prepare well before the meeting. I mean, just list the questions or the problems you want to discuss. As you know, when I'm working, my team members are sleeping. That could cause a problem. I don't have person to ask. I don't mean I need suggestion or guidance, but what I need is a clear answer. Let me give you an example. Let's say if I'm building a website and the clients want an extension, plugin, it's about news. When I decide what kind of extension I should install, TT News or News, I cannot choose by my guess, by my assumption. I need the answer. However, if I wait for the response, for answer from my supervisor, remember we have time zone. That means we will waste one whole day. So before Ron and I meet, I just need to prepare or just foresee the questions or problems I might meet during my working hours. And then I just bring up those questions and get the answers or guidance when we talk. The third one is multiple project. We try to have different projects or tasks for me at one time. That means if I need to wait on feedback on one, I can still have all the projects, all the tasks I can work on, which really helps. The last one is the project management tool. You know, as I mentioned, our project is big and large, kind of, So how can I cooperate with the team on the other end of the globe? At this point, a very good project management system becomes very important. However, I don't want to talk a lot here because we talked a lot earlier today because we use Jira, as you know, and Agile kind of too. But what I want to say here is, for employee, using those kind of tools help me understand, see the big picture of a project, also see the details of each task or even sub-tasks, which really helps me to know what to do and what I should expect. We talked about 12 hours of difference, but don't forget, we still have about 10,000 kilometers in distance. Because of this super long distance, sometimes, employees might feel the relationship is very far from each other. Is that possible to develop a cross continent, but also close company culture? I think the answer is yes. Let's imagine that if an employee, let's imagine if we have an estranged company culture, the employee might feel, it's not out of the team, just like working outsourcing or something like that. Or even worse, the team members, for example, like me, might feel, okay, I'm just outside of the team, which is very dangerous. And that could bring a lot of damages or hurts for both employer and employee. Try to achieve this goal. It's not easy, but it's still achievable. So let's hear what Ron says from his perspective.
At Busy Noggin, we're very serious about developing a quality company culture and work environment. We're intentional on what we do to make that happen. Several activities that we do to make it really special to work here. But however, there's just a couple that I want to share right now that are of particular help to a distributed employee. So first of all, one of the things that we're serious about is to have our distance workers come and spend time with us here in our Dallas office periodically. We had Ben do that for the first time last year. It was great. We brought him over here to spend 2 weeks with us. We paid for the entire trip. He took some time, some extra time to see other parts of the U.S. while he was over here. And when we were here, we talked about things like our code and our company practices and those kind of things. But mostly, we just spent time together. We went to Mavericks basketball games together. Went to a lot of different types of restaurants and different types of food to try that, and just enjoyed each other's company. What we found out is that having spent that time, that face-to-face time, is that our subsequent online meetings on Skype and the rest took on a different flavor and were much easier to do because we understood each other a lot better. And so we probably will have Ben back probably about once every couple of years or so, just to keep that up. And certainly any new out-of-area employees or distributed employees that we add, we're going to make sure we get them on site as soon as possible just to get connected with them and get off to a good start. The other thing that we've also implemented recently is a check-in meeting. This is new for us, and it's for all of our employees, not just Ben. Essentially, is once every couple of weeks, I have a check-in meeting with every employee individually. And this is not so much of what are you doing meeting or what did you do meeting. It's more about how are you meeting. Meaning I want to know things like what's going on in your life, how are things recently here at work, are there things that you have questions about with the company, where we're going, is there anything I can help you with, that we can help you with, those kinds of things, anything that you're wanting to learn that you're not able to get into right now, those kinds of things that we want to visit. And we just do that once every couple of weeks. And sometimes those meetings are 15 minutes long. Other times they may go an hour. We just see where they take us. And they've been very helpful so far, even though we've only been doing them about a month or so.
I want to add a few things for meeting in person. After working for Busy Noggin for about 2 years, I eventually got the chance to go to US to meet the team. But during that 2 years, I think I saw their pictures. Even though we have the video chat, I know how they look like. But when I got to the US and see them and shake hands with them, suddenly I feel the relationship becomes very close. We had a lot of very nice food, had a lot of activities. Those kind of things doesn't help on project or code perspective. But when I was back to China, my home, this really helps. Really helps. Also, just add a few more things for check-in meeting. For example, like my presentation now, my supervisor helped me a lot. We spend a lot of time on preparation, prepare the presentation. That doesn't bring us income. but I myself benefit a lot from it. So I really want to appreciate the opportunity my company gave me, and also the help on the presentation. Also, we have one-on-one meeting. It's a daily based meeting. We spend like 5-10 minutes. Sometimes it goes to 1 hour. It depends. We just want to keep those momentum because it's really important to keep the relationship. The last one is like a tip. We find out that if we have a conference call, it's better to do it in video instead of audio, because that will make the relationship a little bit closer, which is really nice. We talked about communication, culture differences, relationship. Is that all for working for overseas companies? Definitely not. So Ron will just share some brief but useful thoughts about, let's see, those three things: version control, database file synchronization, and development system. Let's see what he says.
I know Ben has already talked to you about some of the things that we use to manage projects, like Jira, which can keep track of issues and allow people to know what they're supposed to do without having to check it with other people. They can do that anytime, day or night. Also, how we use Skype and other tools to be able to do video and audio in our meetings back and forth. What I'd like to talk a little bit about is how we can manage code. So, regardless of whether we have distributed workers or not, we are firm believers that you need to keep your code in version control. We use Git for that. We also have a sync process that allows us to synchronize the database and user files from the live site to our local machines, so that we're always working on an up-to-date copy of the production site on our local machines. In addition to that, we have an automatic deployment process, which ships code up to the server and then flips it over quickly, so that when we deploy code, there's no odd state on the server in which you have a mixture of code and it's not working quite properly. We feel that this kind of environment or this kind of process is important whether or not you have distributed employees. It's essential when you have distributed employees. Ben is able to work on up-to-date copies of the site on his local machine, which means that he doesn't have to use quite as much of kind of spotty internet connections back and forth to work on live sites. Also, he never has to do a deployment to a live site. This means that we don't get in the situation where he tries to put code on a live site, runs into trouble, and then has to contact us in the middle of the night in order to fix it. Instead, he just makes his changes, tests it on a local machine, publishes it, and then we come in during our normal work hours, and we will then deploy that code to the live server and have all the personnel available in case there's an issue. So we find that a really good deployment, sync, and the version control process is essential for working on sophisticated sites.
Here comes to the end of what we want to share today. But before we close it, Ron wants to share something about how to found this relationship. And I think it will benefit both employers and employees. So let's see what he says. Oops.
I'm sure that while listening to Ben talk about these relationships, what's going through a lot of people's mind is, how do you make these things happen? And Ben and I, neither one, have all the answers to that. We do have a few suggestions, though. So one of the assumptions I'm going to make is that the majority of cross-cultural relationships in the Typo 3 community, when you're working on projects, that the default language you're going to be operating in is probably English, because that is the language that Typo 3 documentation is. It's a language used in conferences. So my assumption is you're going to be using English, and if so, then I would really encourage you to work on your English skills, become very good not only at reading but also writing, and then also speaking English to the best of your ability, and just continue to improve that. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the better that you have that down, the easier the communications are, which are the biggest single issue in these relationships is communication. And so it will not only make you the preferred person to go to in these relationships, but it will also allow you to command a higher salary because your communication skills are so much better. So really work on the language skills, I think, is one step. The other thing is how to develop these relationships is to go to conferences like you're doing right now. And go to the conferences not just to hear what's being spoken or what the topics are, but go to meet people and try to just interact. Don't have to make it a scary thing. Just enjoy people, get to meet them, find out where they're from, learn about them, those kind of things. Because as you make these connections, you never know when they will lead to something down the road. There's been a lot of Type of 3 conferences that I've met people from Germany and from France, and I do know in my mind that if I ever had the opportunity to work with them, that they would be great people to work with, because we've got a connection at those conferences. Also, if you get a chance to speak at a conference, that just raises your awareness among the community, and that's a very good thing. The other thing is you can write on blogs, write about your experiences with Type 3, get that out there. People will find you through that as well too. I would also suggest that you volunteer and work with open source projects like Type 3. I do know that there's people that have never met at a Type 3 conference, but through their blogs and through their name coming up over and over again in the Type 3 community in terms of work that they're doing, tell me that those are probably people that I could work with in the future if I ever wanted to or ever made that kind of connection. So those are just some suggestions. There's got to be even much more than that, but the biggest thing is just meet as many people, take as many opportunities as you can to meet people and engage people and get your thoughts and your name out there, and that'll help break these relationships to come about.
Generally speaking, I never imagined I can work for overseas agencies. However, for the first day of my career, I somehow connected with the overseas agencies. I feel so lucky. When I look back at those 11 years working for 3 different overseas companies, I tell myself, wow, what an amazing experiences I had. I gain a lot of satisfaction from what I deliver to my clients. Also, I'm so proud of working with a team, amazing team on the other end of the globe. Meanwhile, I think I'm so lucky that my career can be improved. I mean, the professional development can be improved dramatically during those years. That's all I want to share today. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy it.